Her ex brought his new bride to the reunion to show off their fertile marriage, until she walked in with their secret quadruplets. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty bless every woman with a heart overflowing with love, a spirit filled with courage, and a soul that radiates light to everyone around her. May her kindness heal the broken, her wisdom guide the lost, and her strength lift those who fall. May she always feel cherished, her sacrifices honored, and her presence celebrated. You are the foundation of love, the quiet heroes who hold families together, and the light that shines endlessly. My beautiful family, I see you watching even without liking or commenting. Tell me, have you forgotten your brother, Mr. Peter, or do you think I am done? Please reply, your trust and love are everything to me. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. The moment Taraji Long walked into the Riverside Grand Hotel ballroom with 4 identical 5-year-olds trailing behind her, the entire 20-year reunion stopped breathing. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Every champagne glass froze halfway to waiting lips. Every head turned toward the entrance, where she stood like a queen surveying her kingdom, her children arranged around her like precious jewels she'd polished to perfection. She'd planned this entrance down to the second. The timing, the outfit, the children's coordinated appearance, everything calculated for maximum impact. The quadruplets wore matching navy suits and emerald dresses that complemented their mother's floor-length emerald gown. Taraji had spent 2 hours that afternoon getting them ready, bribing them with promises of ice cream and extra screen time if they behaved perfectly. She'd rehearsed how they should walk, how they should stand, what they should say if anyone asked questions. Now they walked beside her with the confidence she'd spent 5 years building into their bones. Spencer led the pack, his chest puffed out importantly. Tyson followed, looking around with wide, curious eyes. Regina held Tanya's hand, the 2 girls moving in perfect sync, like they shared one heartbeat. David Maxwell stood frozen near the open bar, his champagne glass tilted at a dangerous angle. Beside him, Lynn Williams clutched his arm with perfectly manicured fingers, her other hand resting on her flat stomach in that practiced gesture she'd perfected over the past 6 months. She'd been working the room all evening, casually mentioning her successful fertility treatments to anyone who'd listen, talking about how she and David were finally ready to start their perfect family after years of heartbreak. The irony slammed into the room like a freight train with failed brakes. Taraji watched David's face drain of color, watched his fingers go white around the champagne flute, watched recognition, confusion, horror, and denial flash across his features in rapid succession. She felt satisfaction curl warm and dangerous in her chest. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. This was justice served cold on a silver platter. "Mommy, this place is so fancy," Regina announced loudly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. Her daughter had inherited her projection skills. "Does this mean we're rich now?" Taraji smiled, placing a gentle hand on Regina's shoulder, making sure everyone in the room could hear her response. "We've always been rich, baby, just not in the way some people measure it. We're rich in love and strength and everything that actually matters." She swept past David without a single glance, heading toward the cluster of former classmates who'd stayed in touch over the years. Behind her, she heard Lynn's sharp intake of breath, heard David's champagne glass hit the bar top too hard, heard the crystal crack. Good. Let him break things, let him shatter the way she'd shattered 6 years ago when he'd called her unfit for motherhood. "Taraji!" Her old friend Jessica rushed over, eyes wide as dinner plates, darting between the children and David standing shell-shocked by the bar. "Oh my God, they're beautiful, but are they?" "My children," Taraji confirmed smoothly, her voice pitched to carry. "Spencer, Tyson, Regina, and Tanya, say hello to Miss Jessica, babies." 4 voices chorused polite greetings in perfect unison. They'd practiced this too. Taraji had taught them how to make good first impressions, how to charm adults, how to be the kind of children people remembered. Jessica knelt down to their level, her expression genuine despite her shock. It's so nice to meet all of you. How old are you? 5, Spencer announced proudly. We all turned 5 last month. We had 4 birthday cakes because we each wanted different flavors, and Mommy said we could have whatever we wanted because birthdays are special. The math was simple enough for everyone in that ballroom to calculate instantly. 5 years old meant conceived 6 years ago. David and Lynn had gotten married 5.5 years ago in that rushed courthouse ceremony that had shocked their entire social circle, which meant these children had been conceived before David married Lynn, while he was still with Taraji, or right after their breakup. The whispers started like wildfire catching dry grass. Taraji heard fragments floating through the air. Are those his kids? He never mentioned children. They look exactly like him. Oh my God, Lynn doesn't know. This is insane. They're absolutely gorgeous, Jessica said, standing back up and dropping her voice. Taraji, I had no idea you had children. You never mentioned... I kept my private life private, Taraji said calmly. I focused on building my business and raising my babies. You understand. But their father, Jessica's eyes darted toward David again, is irrelevant to their upbringing. I handled everything myself. These children know exactly who takes care of them, who loves them, who shows up every single day. The band had stopped playing. The entire reunion was now focused on the unfolding drama. Taraji could feel dozens of eyes boring into her back, could hear the whispered speculation growing louder. Taraji. David's voice came from directly behind her, rough and strained like he'd swallowed broken glass. We need to talk. Right now. She turned, slowly, deliberately, meeting his eyes for the first time in 6 years. He looked older, still handsome in that polished way wealthy men maintained, but there were new lines carved around his eyes and mouth, lines of stress, lines of a life that hadn't gone exactly as planned. Good. She hoped every single one of them hurt when he looked in the mirror. I don't think we have anything to discuss, she said calmly, as if they were strangers making small talk. I'm here to reconnect with old friends. You should get back to your wife. She looks upset. Lynn had moved closer, her face pale beneath layers of expensive makeup. Her hand had dropped from her stomach. Her eyes were darting between Taraji and the 4 children who were unmistakably David's biological offspring. The resemblance was undeniable to anyone with working eyes. Spencer had David's exact eye shape and color, that distinctive hazel with golden flecks. Tyson had his strong jawline and prominent chin. Regina had that distinctive Maxwell family dimple in her left cheek that appeared when she smiled. Tanya had David's intense, focused stare, the way she observed everything with quiet calculation. Those are your children? Lynn's voice cracked on the last word, climbing toward hysteria. You have 4 children? Mine, Taraji confirmed, meeting Lynn's horrified gaze directly. Conceived, carried through a complicated high-risk pregnancy, delivered via emergency C-section at 31 weeks, raised through infancy and toddlerhood and every developmental milestone entirely by me, as it should be. Spencer tugged on Taraji's dress, his small face scrunched in confusion. Mommy? Why is that man staring at us like that? You always tell us staring is rude. The ballroom erupted in barely suppressed gasps and whispers. Someone's phone was definitely recording this. Tomorrow, this would be all over social media. Good. Let the whole world see David Maxwell confronted with the children he'd never known existed. Taraji watched David's face drain of remaining color, watched his hand start to shake, watched comprehension dawn that his entire life was about to implode in spectacular fashion. David's old college roommate appeared at his elbow, squinting at the quadruplets with growing recognition. Man, those kids look exactly like you did when we were in elementary school. I've seen those pictures at your mom's house 100 times. Same eyes, same expression, same everything. Lynn made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. She spun on David, her voice climbing to a shout. What the hell is this? What the actual hell is this, David? You told me you wanted a family. You told me I was broken. You said we'd have children together and you already have 4 of them. I didn't know. David said, but his voice lacked conviction. His eyes were still locked on Spencer, on Tyson, on Regina, on Tanya, on 4 pieces of himself walking around in the world without his knowledge or permission. Didn't know or didn't want to know? Taraji asked softly, dangerously, her voice cutting through Lynn's rising hysteria. There's a significant difference, David, an important moral distinction that I think everyone here should understand clearly. She turned back to Jessica, effectively dismissing both David and Lynn as if they were insignificant background noise. Now tell me about this business venture you mentioned on Facebook last month. I'm always looking for collaboration opportunities with talented designers. Behind her, Lynn's voice rose to a full scream. You told me you wanted a family. You let me go through years of treatments. You let me blame myself. You said I was the problem. Her voice broke entirely, dissolving into tears that smeared her perfect makeup. David reached for her arm, trying to pull her aside, trying to contain the scene. She jerked away violently, stumbling in her expensive heels. The scene was attracting every eye in the room now. Multiple phones were recording. This was going to be viral by morning. Taraji felt a savage satisfaction knowing David's perfect life was crumbling in real time. Tyson, Regina, go with your brother and sister to that dessert table, Taraji instructed calmly, pointing across the room. Pick out what you want. We'll have it after dinner. Don't eat anything yet. Just look. The children scampered off happily, oblivious to the adult drama they'd caused simply by existing. Taraji watched them go, her heart swelling with fierce maternal pride. They were everything. They were her entire world, her purpose, her greatest achievement, and they'd been built without David Maxwell's help, without his support, without his presence or approval or involvement. She felt him move closer again, felt the heat of him at her back, smelled his expensive cologne that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget used to cost. Taraji, please, I'm begging you. I need to understand. I need to know what happened. You need nothing from me, she said without turning around. You made your choices 6 years ago. You married Lynn 3 weeks after we ended things. You got exactly what you wanted, a woman who'd worship you and make you the center of her universe. Congratulations on achieving your goals. I didn't want this. I didn't want to miss their entire lives. I didn't want... Then you should have thought about that before you told me I wasn't mother material. She turned finally, letting him see the ice in her eyes, the absolute zero of her feelings for him. Before you called me cold and selfish and unfit to raise children. Before you married someone else to prove whatever point you were trying to make about traditional gender roles and family values. Those children exist despite you, not because of you. Remember that when you're lying awake tonight wondering what you missed. She walked away, collected her 4 perfect babies from the dessert table where they were debating the merits of chocolate versus vanilla cake, and headed toward the exit. Behind her, Lynn was crying openly now, demanding answers David clearly couldn't provide. Behind her, whispers spread through the reunion crowd like a virus, infecting every conversation. Behind her, David Maxwell was finally understanding the true cost of his choices. And Taraji Long didn't look back once. Chapter 2. The ultimatum that changed everything. 6 years earlier, Taraji had stood in the living room of the apartment they'd shared for 18 months, staring at David with disbelief that was gradually hardening into white-hot fury. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, casting everything in golden tones that should have been romantic, but instead felt accusatory. She'd just gotten off the phone with the Pacific Northwest Botanical Gardens. They'd offered her the opportunity of a lifetime, lead designer for their complete renovation project. 18 months in Seattle, her name on the premier botanical destination on the West Coast. Industry recognition that would establish her as a top-tier landscape architect. She'd expected David to be excited, maybe concerned about the distance, but ultimately supportive. They'd talked about her career ambitions constantly. He knew how hard she'd worked for this moment. Instead, he was giving her an ultimatum. You're asking me to choose between you and my career? Her voice was dangerously quiet, the calm before a Category 5 hurricane. You're actually seriously giving me an ultimatum right now? David paced near the window, his jaw set in that stubborn line she'd once found attractive. Now it just looked childish and petulant. It's not an ultimatum, Taraji. It's reality. The project is in Seattle. You'd be gone for 18 months, maybe longer depending on complications. How are we supposed to start a family if you're thousands of miles away chasing some professional dream? Some professional dream. She couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. David, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. They want me, specifically me, to redesign the entire Pacific Northwest Botanical Gardens. This could establish me as one of the top landscape architects in the entire country. This could transform my career, and I'm supposed to just wait around while you build your empire? He turned to face her, his expression cold in a way she'd never seen before. That's not what I signed up for when we started this relationship. I want a partner who's actually here. I want someone who understands that family comes first, not ambition. Taraji felt something crack deep in her chest, something fundamental shifting in how she saw this man she'd thought she knew. Family hasn't even started yet, David. We're not even engaged. We haven't even seriously discussed marriage, and you're already demanding I sacrifice everything I've worked for. My mother gave up her entire career when she had me and my sister, David shot back, and there it was, the comparison she should have seen coming. She was a lawyer, a good one. She could have made partner, but she made us her priority instead because she understood that raising children is the most important job in the world. That's what real women do. They understand what actually matters. Real women? The words hit her like physical slaps, each syllable landing with bruising force. So what am I, David? A fake woman because I have ambition, because I don't want to throw away 7 years of education and 4 years of building my business to become someone's housewife. You're not mother material, he said, and his voice was brutal in its certainty, final, like he'd thought about this extensively and reached an absolute conclusion. You're too focused on yourself, on your career, on proving something to the world. You're cold, Taraji. You're selfish. Children need warmth. They need someone who actually wants to be there for them, not someone who sees them as obstacles to professional success. She stood very still, absorbing the words like bullets tearing through vital organs. Each accusation found its mark, ripping through her sense of self, through everything she'd believed about their relationship and his respect for her. I see, she said finally, her voice flat and empty. Lynn understands, he continued, and Taraji's head snapped up sharply. Lynn Williams from my office. She gets it. She actually wants to be a wife and mother. She's not obsessed with building some career empire and proving she's better than everyone. She understands what really matters in life. Lynn. Taraji's voice went dangerously quiet. Lynn Williams, the pharmaceutical sales rep who brings coffee to your office every morning and laughs at all your jokes? That Lynn? David had the grace to look uncomfortable for approximately 3 seconds before his jaw set stubbornly again. We've been talking, as friends. She's supportive. She shares my values about family and priorities. She's what I need, Taraji. Someone who won't choose her career over our future children. Someone who actually wants to build a life instead of just a resume. The apartment suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. Taraji walked to their bedroom on legs that felt disconnected from her body, pulled out the suitcase from under the bed, and started packing with shaking hands. She grabbed clothes randomly, not caring what matched or what she'd need. She just needed to get out before she started screaming or crying or both. What are you doing? David appeared in the doorway. Leaving, like you clearly want me to. You've already found my replacement, so I'm making it easy for you. Taraji, don't be dramatic. I'm just trying to have an honest conversation about our future. There is no our future, not anymore. Not after you called me cold and selfish and unfit to be a mother. Not after you told me I'm not a real woman. Not after you've apparently been emotionally cheating with Lynn from your office. She zipped the suitcase, grabbed her laptop bag and purse, and walked out without looking at him again. She drove straight to her mother's house, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they went numb, jaw clenched so hard her teeth ached. She didn't cry. She was too angry to cry, too hurt to process anything except the overwhelming need to prove David wrong about everything he'd said. Her mother took one look at her face and opened the door wider. "Baby, what happened? I need to stay here for a while. Is that okay?" "Always. Your room is exactly how you left it." Taraji moved in that night. She threw herself into work with manic intensity, taking every consultation, every project, every opportunity. She'd show David exactly how wrong he was. She'd build that empire he'd accused her of chasing. She'd prove that ambition and motherhood weren't mutually exclusive. She'd demonstrate that cold, selfish women could accomplish anything. 3 weeks later, her mother showed her the Facebook announcement while Taraji was eating breakfast before an early meeting. David Maxwell and Lynn Williams had gotten married in a small private ceremony. The post included a photo of them at a courthouse, Lynn beaming in a white dress, David looking satisfied and vindicated. The caption read, "Finally found a woman who understands what family means, ready to start this new chapter with someone who shares my values. Sometimes you have to let go of the wrong person to find the right one." Taraji stared at the post for exactly 30 seconds before closing her laptop and heading to work. She didn't cry, didn't call him, didn't reach out to mutual friends. She just went silent and worked harder. 4 weeks after their fight, 1 week after David's wedding, Taraji missed her period. She didn't think much of it at first. Stress could cause delays. She'd been working 70-hour weeks, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and rage. But when the second week passed with no period, anxiety started creeping in. She took the pregnancy test in her mother's bathroom at 6 in the morning, hands trembling as she waited for the result. The 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. When the positive sign appeared, clear and undeniable, she sat on the cold tile floor and stared at it for 20 minutes straight. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not after everything David had said about her being unfit for motherhood. Not after he'd married someone else, specifically because she'd be a better mother than Taraji. "Baby," her mother knocked softly on the bathroom door. "You've been in there a long time. You okay?" Taraji opened the door wordlessly and handed her mother the test, watching understanding dawn across her face like a sunrise nobody wanted. "Oh, honey, does David—" "No." Taraji's voice was firm, absolute, "and he's not going to know. Ever. Taraji, regardless of what happened between you two, he has a right to know he's going to be a father. He has no rights." Taraji stood, squaring her shoulders, feeling something fierce and protective already taking root in her chest. "He told me I'm not mother material. He called me cold and selfish. He married someone else 3 weeks after we broke up because she'd make a better mother than me. I don't owe him anything. Not information, not access, not a chance to prove himself. Nothing." Her mother studied her for a long moment, reading the steel in her daughter's eyes. "Are you sure about this? Once you make this choice, there's no going back. That child will grow up without a father. That child will grow up with a mother who wants them, who'll love them fiercely, who'll prove that everything David said was wrong." Taraji placed a protective hand on her still flat stomach. "I'm keeping this baby. I'm taking the Seattle project and doing it remotely, and I'm going to show the world that I can do both. Be an incredible mother and build a successful career. I'm going to prove David wrong about everything." "Then we'll do it together," her mother said firmly, pulling her into a hug. "You and me. We'll show him what a real woman actually looks like." The first ultrasound appointment was routine, standard procedure for confirming pregnancy and checking initial development. Taraji lay on the examination table, staring at the ceiling tiles, trying not to think about David or Lynn or the fact that she was about to become a single mother. The ultrasound technician moved the wand over Taraji's stomach, squinting at the screen with gradually widening eyes. She paused, moved the wand again, measured something, then paused again. "Ms. Long, I need to get the doctor, right now." Terror flooded through Taraji's entire body, cold and paralyzing. "What's wrong? Is the baby okay? Is something—" "The babies are fine," the technician said carefully, deliberately. "All four of them." The room tilted sideways. Taraji gripped the edges of the examination table, certain she'd heard wrong. "Four? Did you say four?" "Quadruplets. It's incredibly rare without fertility treatments. We're talking about a 1 in 700,000 natural occurrence. You're looking at an extremely high-risk pregnancy, Ms. Long. I need you to understand the serious implications of carrying 4 babies." Her mother grabbed her hand, squeezing hard enough to hurt. Taraji stared at the ultrasound screen where the technician was pointing out 4 tiny flickering heartbeats, 4 separate gestational sacs, 4 separate human beings growing inside her, 4 babies, 4 children, 4 lives depending entirely on her. "What does high risk mean specifically?" Taraji asked, her voice surprisingly steady. The doctor arrived and explained everything in clinical detail. Bed rest starting around 24 weeks, likelihood of premature delivery, possible complications, extended NICU stays, the possibility of losing 1 or more babies, the extreme toll on her body, the fact that she'd need constant monitoring and care. Taraji absorbed every word, feeling something fierce and unbreakable taking root in her chest. "Then we'll handle high risk," she said finally. "Whatever it takes. These babies are coming into this world, and they're going to thrive." She called David's mother exactly once, 2 months into the pregnancy. She told herself she was doing the right thing, giving him one chance to know, one opportunity to step up. "Mrs. Maxwell, this is Taraji. I need to speak with David. It's important." The line went cold instantly. "Oh, Taraji. David's moved on, dear. He and Lynn are very happy together, starting their own family now. I think it's best if you don't contact him anymore. He doesn't want any drama from his past relationships. I'm sure you understand." Taraji hung up without another word. She'd tried. She'd given him the chance through his family. They'd shut the door themselves. The babies would never know their father. Looking back at the man who'd called her unfit for motherhood while marrying someone else within weeks, Taraji thought her children were infinitely better off without him. Chapter 3. Building an Empire on Her Back. The doctor's words were clinically precise, but Taraji heard the warning beneath them with crystal clarity. "Mandatory bed rest starting at 24 weeks, Ms. Long. Absolutely no exceptions. Quadruplets are extremely high risk. We're talking about potential complications that could threaten your life and theirs. We're aiming to get you to at least 32 weeks, ideally 34. Every single day those babies stay inside your body increases their survival odds and long-term health outcomes dramatically." Taraji sat in the examination room wearing one of those horrible paper gowns, her laptop bag heavy on her shoulder, her phone already buzzing insistently with work emails she needed to answer. The Pacific Northwest Botanical Gardens project was entering its critical design phase. She had major presentations scheduled, client meetings that couldn't be rescheduled, contracts that needed her personal signature and oversight. "I have a crucial presentation in 3 weeks, she said, already mentally calculating how to make this work. "The Botanical Garden Project timeline will have to be adjusted or delegated," the doctor interrupted firmly. "Ms. Long, I need you to understand something. Your priority for the next several months is keeping these babies alive and growing. That means complete bed rest, lying on your left side as much as possible to maximize blood flow. No stress, no physical exertion, nothing that could trigger premature labor. I'm not exaggerating when I say your life and your children's lives depend on following these instructions exactly." Her mother drove her home in heavy silence. Taraji stared out the window, watching her carefully constructed plans dissolve into impossibility. She'd moved back to her hometown after deciding to keep the pregnancy, turning down the Seattle relocation but negotiating a lucrative remote consulting position. Her small landscape architecture firm was just starting to gain serious traction. She had 3 major clients and 2 pending proposals that could transform her business into something substantial, something that proved David wrong about everything. "I can't stop working completely," she said finally, breaking the silence. Not entirely. This business is my future, their future. I need it to survive. Then we adapt, her mother said with the practicality that had gotten them through every crisis. You work from bed. I'll be your legs, your hands, your physical presence. We'll make this work because we don't have another choice. For the next 3.5 months, Taraji ran her entire business from a laptop balanced precariously on her enormous belly. She took client calls while lying on her left side, pillows propped everywhere, her body aching from maintaining the same position for hours. She reviewed landscape designs while her mother held up fabric samples, paint swatches, and plant catalogues for her inspection and approval. She negotiated contracts via carefully angled video calls that only showed her face and shoulders, never revealing the medical equipment monitoring her constantly or the hospital-grade bed her insurance had provided. One particularly important client asked during a video meeting why she wasn't conducting the usual on-site visits and inspections. "Temporary medical restriction," Taraji said smoothly, her professional smile never wavering. "Nothing serious, just doctor's orders to take it easy for a few months. My incredibly capable associate is handling all physical inspections and I'm reviewing everything remotely. You'll receive the same quality work and attention to detail you've come to expect from my firm." She didn't mention she was fighting every single day to keep 4 babies alive inside a body that was screaming from the strain. Didn't mention the constant nausea that had her vomiting multiple times daily despite medication. Didn't mention the swollen ankles that had ballooned to twice their normal size. Didn't mention the shooting pains in her back and ribs that made her gasp when she thought nobody could hear. Didn't explain that she was terrified every single moment that something would go catastrophically wrong. Her business partner called weekly with increasing frustration. He wanted her to step back, to let him take over the major projects, to essentially sideline herself while he built his own reputation using her client relationships. "You need to be realistic about your limitations," he said during one particularly contentious call. "You can't give these projects the attention they deserve while dealing with a complicated pregnancy. Let me handle the botanical garden proposal. You can consult, but I should be the lead designer." "Absolutely not," Taraji said from her bed, one hand protectively on her belly where baby number 3 was currently using her ribs as a punching bag. "I built these client relationships. My name brings in the business. You're my associate, not my replacement. I'm fully capable of managing everything remotely." "But for how much longer? What happens when you go into labor? What happens during recovery?" "Then you cover for me temporarily, but you don't take over. These are still my projects, my clients, my business. Are we clear?" The tension in their partnership grew with each passing week, but Taraji refused to back down. She'd worked too hard to let pregnancy, even a high-risk quadruplet pregnancy, destroy everything she'd built. At 31 weeks, her water broke during a conference call about the botanical garden project. She was mid-sentence, explaining her vision for the native plant section, when she felt the warm gush of fluid soaking through her clothing. For one frozen moment, she simply stared at her laptop screen, at the client's expectant face, waiting for her to finish her thought. "I need to go," she said with remarkable calm, her hand already reaching for the phone to call her mother. "My associate will email you the final revisions by end of business today." She closed the laptop even as more fluid soaked through the sheets. Her mother appeared in the doorway 30 seconds later, took one look at her daughter's face, and grabbed her keys. "Hospital, now, don't argue." The emergency C-section was scheduled within 90 minutes of arrival. Taraji lay on the operating table, numb from the chest down, listening to the surgical team prepare their equipment and discuss procedures in calm, clinical voices. Her mother stood beside her head, holding her hand and whispering prayers Taraji couldn't quite hear over the pounding of her own terrified heartbeat. "You're going to hear 4 cries," the doctor said from behind the surgical drape. "They'll be small. They'll sound weak. Don't panic. That's completely normal for 31-weekers. The NICU team is standing by and ready. We've got the best people waiting for your babies." Spencer came first, weighing 3 pounds and 2 ounces. His cry was thin and reedy but determined, full of outrage at being evicted from his warm home. Taraji started crying immediately at that sound, proof that at least one baby was alive and breathing. Tyson followed 20 seconds later at 3 pounds even, his cry louder and angrier, already protesting everything about this situation. Regina emerged at 2 pounds 14 ounces, her cry barely audible, just a whisper of sound that made Taraji's heart clench with fear. Tanya came last at 2 pounds 13 ounces, completely silent and terrifyingly still. Is she breathing? Taraji tried to sit up despite the numbness and restraints, panic overwhelming everything. Why isn't she crying? Why isn't she? She's breathing, a NICU nurse called out. Just very quiet. Some babies are like that. They're all breathing, Ms. Long. They're all alive. They whisked all 4 babies away to the NICU before Taraji could really see them, before she could touch them or count their fingers or whisper any of the promises she'd been rehearsing. She lay on the operating table while they stitched her body back together, tears streaming into her hair, her arms achingly empty, her body traumatized and her heart shattered with overwhelming fear and love. The NICU became her entire world. 4 isolettes lined up in a row, 4 tiny humans smaller than dolls, each one hooked to what seemed like dozens of wires and tubes and monitors. She couldn't hold them yet. They were too fragile, too small, fighting too hard just to breathe and maintain body temperature. She could only press her hand against the plastic and whisper promises through tears. Mommy's here. I'm right here, babies. You're going to be strong. You're going to survive this. You're going to grow up and be amazing. I promise you're going to be okay. Her milk came in with aggressive force. She pumped every 2 hours around the clock, filling bottles that nurses would carefully feed to her babies through impossibly tiny tubes. Her breasts became engorged and painful. Her body ached everywhere. She hadn't slept more than 90 minutes continuously in over a week, but she kept pumping because it was the only thing she could do to help them, the only way she could contribute to their survival. Her business partner called 5 days after delivery. I heard you had the babies. Congratulations. When do you think you'll be back to work? Taraji sat in the NICU pumping room, watching her breast milk flow into bottles, her body aching, her babies fighting for life in the next room. Give me 3 months. When the babies come home and settle, I'm back at full capacity. Taraji, be realistic. You have 4 newborns, premature newborns. You can't possibly manage the business and— Watch me, she interrupted. 3 months. Or buy me out right now and watch me take every single client with me when I start my own competing firm. The silence on the line stretched long enough that Taraji knew she'd won. 3 months, he agreed reluctantly. Spencer came home first after 5 weeks in the NICU, still tiny but gaining weight steadily. Then Tyson, after 6 weeks. Regina needed 7 weeks before doctors cleared her. Tanya, the smallest and quietest, stayed for 9 agonizing weeks until she finally reached the weight and developmental milestones required for discharge. By the time Taraji brought her last baby home, she'd been functioning on approximately 3 hours of sleep per night for nearly 3 months straight. Her body hadn't recovered from the pregnancy or surgery. She was still wearing maternity clothes because nothing else fit her changed shape. She looked and felt like someone who'd survived a war. 4 cribs crammed into her childhood bedroom at her mother's house. 4 feeding schedules that never aligned no matter how hard she tried. 4 babies who cried at different times for different reasons, with different needs. Her mother moved in permanently, though in reality Taraji had never left her mother's house. They worked in shifts. Taraji took night duty, catching brutal snatches of sleep in 90-minute chunks between feedings and diaper changes and the general chaos of caring for 4 infants simultaneously. She worked during those quiet dawn hours when all 4 babies miraculously slept at the same time for precious 30-minute windows. She made client calls during the afternoon nap time that only happened if she drove them around the neighborhood in her van, their car seats vibrating with the engine motion. She revised landscape designs while nursing 2 babies at once, her laptop propped on a pillow, her free hand typing with hunt and peck efficiency. 6 months after delivery, her business partner made his move. He'd found someone else to take over her role, someone without 4 infants requiring constant care, someone who could actually be present at meetings and site visits, someone who wasn't a sleep-deprived single mother, barely holding everything together. "I'm not leaving," Taraji said during the video call, where he tried to force her out. One baby was strapped to her chest in a carrier. Another slept in a swing, clearly visible in the background. "I built this firm. My name brings in the clients. My designs win the awards. Try to force me out, and I'll start my own company tomorrow and take every single client who's ever worked with me directly." She did exactly that. Incorporated Taraji Long designs while her babies were 6 months old, working from her makeshift home office with a massive play yard set up beside her desk. She contacted every client who'd specifically requested her work and offered them continuation of service with her new firm. She undercut her old partner's prices until his business started hemorrhaging money and clients. She was ruthless and exhausted and absolutely determined to prove David wrong about everything. Within 18 months, she was the premier landscape architect in the entire region. Within 3 years, she'd expanded to commercial projects that brought in serious money. Her children attended an exclusive preschool that cost more than most people's rent. She'd saved enough to buy a house with a huge backyard where Spencer and Tyson could run wild, where Regina could have her own small garden, where Tanya could sit quietly observing the world she'd almost not survived entering. She'd done every impossible step alone. Every exhausting day, every terrifying night, every moment of triumph and terror, completely alone. Sometimes she tracked David's life through mutual friends' social media posts. His hedge fund seemed to be thriving. Lynn posted carefully curated pictures of their lives, exotic vacation destinations, expensive restaurants, charity galas where they smiled for cameras. But never any pregnancy announcements, never any baby bump photos, never any proud parent moments. The one thing they'd both supposedly wanted, the thing David had destroyed his relationship with Taraji over, remained conspicuously and painfully absent from their picture-perfect life. Taraji felt no satisfaction in their obvious struggle with fertility. She felt nothing about David at all anymore, except distant gratitude that he'd shown his true character before her children had been old enough to remember his rejection. On the quadruplet's 5th birthday, her father came over for the party. He'd been openly skeptical when she'd first announced her intention to keep the pregnancy and raise 4 children alone. He'd suggested adoption. He'd questioned whether she could manage. He'd worried she was destroying her life and career out of stubborn pride. Now he watched Spencer help Regina blow out her candles while Tyson and Tanya clapped and sang off-key, and his eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "You're the strongest person I've ever known in my entire life," he told her quietly. "I doubted you. I was wrong. These children are remarkable, and that's entirely because of your strength and love." That night, after the children were finally asleep, after the cake was put away and the presents were organized and the house was cleaned, Regina's question from earlier in the day echoed in Taraji's mind on repeat. "Mommy, why don't we have a daddy like the other kids at school?" She'd answered simply, carefully. "Because we're enough all by ourselves, baby. Our family is perfect exactly as it is." And they were. They absolutely were enough. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. War begins. David arrived at Taraji Long Designs at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, looking like he hadn't slept or shaved or changed clothes since the reunion 3 days ago. The converted warehouse that housed Taraji's architectural studio sat in the revitalized downtown district, all exposed brick and massive windows and carefully curated industrial chic aesthetic. Her company logo hung on the exterior, elegant, modern, successful, everything she'd built without his help or approval. Taraji's assistant Rebecca intercepted him at the minimalist reception desk, her professionally polite expression faltering slightly at his disheveled appearance. "Mr. Maxwell, Ms. Long doesn't have any appointments scheduled this morning. Tell her I'm not leaving until she sees me." His voice was rough, desperate, edged with the kind of unhinged desperation that made Rebecca's hand drift subtly toward the phone where building security was on speed dial. Rebecca glanced nervously toward Taraji's office, then back at David, who looked like he might actually cause a scene in her lobby. "Let me check if she's available." Taraji's voice came through the intercom system, crystal clear. "Send him in, Rebecca. Then call building security and tell them to stand by, and start recording this conversation on my phone." David pushed past the assistant into Taraji's private office, taking in the space that screamed success at volumes he couldn't ignore. Exposed brick walls with original architectural drawings framed like art. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, flooding everything with natural light. Her massive desk was made from reclaimed wood and industrial steel, probably custom-built and expensive. Architectural models of her completed projects displayed on shelves like trophies. Awards lined one entire wall, design competitions, sustainability recognition, industry honors, magazine covers featuring her work mounted and framed. She sat behind that enormous desk, wearing a cream silk blouse and perfectly tailored black slacks, her natural hair styled in elegant twists that must have taken an hour to perfect. She looked powerful, wealthy, completely in control. Everything he'd once tried to convince her she couldn't be without his guidance and support. "You have 10 minutes, she said calmly, not looking up from her laptop screen. "I suggest you use them wisely." "How could you keep my children from me?" The words exploded out of him like he'd been holding them in, under pressure for days. "4 kids, Taraji. 4 children for 5 entire years, and you never told me. You deliberately hid them from me, denied me the chance to be their father, robbed me of 5 years of their lives. Your children." Now she did look up, her expression absolutely arctic. "That's interesting phrasing. I don't recall you being present for any part of their existence, not the conception. Well, technically yes, for about 30 seconds, but you were already planning your exit strategy by then. Not the pregnancy, not the emergency delivery when I nearly died, not a single sleepless night, diaper change, doctor's appointment, illness, milestone, tear, tantrum, or triumph. So tell me exactly what makes them your children, David." "Biology makes them mine. Genetics, DNA. I had a right to know I was a father." Taraji opened her desk drawer with deliberate slowness and pulled out a manila folder that looked prepared specifically for this confrontation. She slid it across the polished surface. David grabbed it with shaking hands, opened it, and felt the entire floor drop out from under him like a trapdoor to hell. Text message screenshots, his own words from 6 years ago sent to mutual friends the week before he married Lynn. "Taraji will never be mother material. Too cold, too career-focused. Kids need warmth, and she's got ice running through her veins instead of blood." More texts. "Real women understand that family comes first. Taraji only cares about herself and her career. Thank God I dodged that bullet." An audio file was labeled "Final Fight, Full Recording." Taraji had apparently recorded their entire last argument. His voice came through the laptop speakers clearly, cruelly, calling her selfish and cold and unfit for motherhood, telling her real women sacrificed their careers for family, comparing her unfavorably to Lynn. Facebook posts he'd made after marrying Lynn, screenshots with dates and timestamps. Finally found a woman who understands what family means and isn't too selfish to build one. "My wife gets it. She'd give up anything for our future children. That's what real commitment looks like." "Where did you... I never gave you permission to record private conversations." David's hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled. "Funny how you're suddenly concerned about consent and privacy when you spent weeks trashing my character to mutual friends," Taraji said with devastating calm. "Those recordings and screenshots, they're also with my lawyer, along with statutory declarations from 3 mutual friends who remember you explicitly stating I would be a terrible mother. Phone records are included showing I called your mother exactly once when I was 8 weeks pregnant. She told me you'd moved on and didn't want drama from your past. That was my one attempt at doing the so-called right thing. Your family shut the door. You never even knew I'd tried to contact you." David sank into the leather chair across from her desk, staring at documented evidence of his own cruelty. "I didn't know my mother told you that. I swear I didn't know you'd called." "Would it have mattered?" Taraji interrupted. You married Lynn 3 weeks after calling me unfit for motherhood. You built an entire life that explicitly excluded me. You told everyone who'd listen that I was too cold and selfish to ever be a good mother. You posted publicly about finding a real woman who understood family values. You don't get to rewrite that history now just because the consequences are inconvenient. His phone started buzzing insistently. Lynn calling for what must have been the 50th time since the reunion. He'd stopped answering after the 15th call, when she'd screamed at him for 2 hours straight about lies and betrayal and wasted years of painful fertility treatments. "Lynn left me," he said dully, staring at his vibrating phone. "Moved out Sunday morning. Her lawyer served me with divorce papers yesterday. She's taking everything. The house, half my assets, probably my reputation too, based on what she's already told our friends." "Good for Lynn," Taraji said without a trace of sympathy. "She deserves better than a man who let her go through years of fertility treatments while he had 4 healthy children he never bothered to acknowledge. Now get out of my office. I want to meet my children properly. I want custody arrangements. I want regular visitation. I want to be their father." "You want?" Taraji laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to draw blood. "Let me tell you what you actually get. Nothing. You abandoned me pregnant. You never paid a single cent of child support. You called me unfit for motherhood while I was literally carrying your children. You have no legal standing, 0 rights. So unless you want me to take that folder to every single media outlet in this city and let them tell the story of David Maxwell's secret family he abandoned, you'll leave quietly and accept that you forfeited any claim when you chose Lynn over taking responsibility. I'll fight you in court. I'll get lawyers. I'll demand paternity tests and custody arrangements and—" "Do it," Taraji said, standing up and placing both hands flat on her desk. "Please do. Take me to court. Let's air every single detail publicly. Let's talk about how you told your pregnant ex-girlfriend through your mother that you'd moved on and didn't want drama. Let's discuss how you posted publicly about finding a real woman 2 weeks after your children were conceived. Let's examine your complete absence from their lives for 5 full years. I have nothing to hide. David, every choice I made is documented and justifiable. Can you honestly say the same?" He wanted to argue, wanted to rage and demand, and somehow force this situation into something he could control. But looking at Taraji now, seeing the absolute steel in her eyes and the unshakable confidence in her posture, he realized he'd lost this fight before it even started. She'd won the moment she decided to raise these children alone. Every day she'd fought without him made his claim weaker. Every milestone he'd missed was evidence of his abandonment. Every achievement she'd accomplished proved him wrong about her capabilities. "At least let my parents meet them," he said finally, his voice breaking. "They're innocent in all this. They don't deserve to be cut off from their own grandchildren. Your mother told me to leave you alone when I was pregnant and terrified. Your father didn't question why his son married someone else within weeks of ending a serious relationship. They protected your choices. Now they live with the consequences." David's phone rang again, his mother's name flashing on the screen this time. "Answer it," Taraji commanded. "On speaker. Let's see if she's still defending her precious son." He accepted the call on speaker with trembling hands. David, I just saw the photos from the reunion circulating online. Those children look exactly like you. Please tell me what's happening. Are they—" "Mine," he confirmed, his voice dead. 4 of them. Taraji kept them from me." "Did she now?" Taraji's voice cut across the line like a knife. "Or did you make it abundantly clear through your family that you wanted nothing to do with me or any potential future I might have? Hello, Mrs. Maxwell. Do you remember when I called you 6 years ago, when I was 2 months pregnant with your grandchildren and desperately needed to reach David?" Silence on the line. Heavy, guilty silence. "You said I needed to speak with David," his mother said finally, her voice small. "You didn't specifically say you were pregnant." "Would it have mattered?" Taraji demanded. "You told me he'd moved on with Lynn and didn't want drama from his past relationships. You protected your son's choices and his new marriage. You chose his happiness over the truth. Own that decision. Own what it cost these children." The call ended abruptly. David stared at his phone, then at Taraji, comprehension finally dawning that his entire family had failed at a crucial moment. "Get out of my office," Taraji repeated. "Don't come back. Don't call. Don't show up at my house or my children's school or anywhere near my family. If you do, I'll have you arrested for harassment and stalking. I'll take out restraining orders. I'll make your life so legally complicated you'll wish you'd never seen me at that reunion. Are we perfectly clear?" David stood on legs that felt disconnected from his body. "This isn't over." "Yes," Taraji said with absolute finality. "It really truly is." Security escorted him from the building. He sat in his car in the parking lot for 2 hours, staring at nothing, his entire world collapsing in slow motion around him. Lynn was filing for divorce and demanding half of everything. His mother had lied by omission about Taraji's attempt to contact him. He had 4 children he'd never met properly, who didn't know his name or face. And Taraji had become everything he'd told her she couldn't be, raising his children alone while building a business empire that made his own success look mediocre by comparison. The irony was physically painful. Chapter 5. The Invasion. The phone call came during Taraji's site visit at a luxury hotel renovation project, interrupting her conversation with the lead contractor about timeline concerns. "Ms. Long, this is Principal Harrison from Brookside Academy. We have an urgent situation involving your children." Taraji's blood turned to ice water in her veins. "What kind of situation? Are they injured? Is there an emergency?" "No, ma'am. The children are physically safe, but there's a man here claiming to be their biological father. He's positioned at the fence line of our playground attempting to speak with Spencer. Our security has been notified, but I thought you should know immediately given the circumstances." Taraji was in her car within 30 seconds flat, abandoning the contractor mid-sentence, breaking every speed limit across town. She called her lawyer on the way, her voice shaking with rage so intense she could barely form words. "He's violating everything we discussed. He's approached my children at their school. Get a restraining order filed. Today. This morning. Right now. I'm on it. Document everything. Photos, witnesses, timeline." She screeched into the Brookside Academy parking lot 20 minutes later, her tires leaving rubber marks. A security guard stood posted at the playground fence. Beyond him on the public sidewalk, David gripped the chain-link barrier with white-knuckled hands, talking urgently to Spencer, who stood several feet back, looking confused and frightened. Taraji was out of her car before the engine fully stopped, running across the parking lot in her professional heels. "Get away from my son!" She screamed it loud enough that parents picking up other children turned to stare. "Get the hell away from him right now!" David turned, his face desperate and pleading. "Taraji, please. I just wanted to talk to him for a minute. Just introduce myself properly. I just wanted him to know you're terrorizing a 5-year-old child at his school." She reached Spencer through the fence, and her son immediately attached himself to her legs, trembling. She could feel him shaking through her slacks. "Spencer, baby, are you okay? Did that man touch you?" "He said he's my daddy." Spencer's voice was small and scared. "But we don't have a daddy, you said so. Why is he saying that?" David flinched like he'd been physically struck. "Spencer, I know this is confusing, but I really am." "You're nothing to him," Taraji cut him off viciously. "You're a stranger who's scaring him at his school. You're someone who should be arrested for approaching children who don't know you. You come near my children again without my explicit written permission, and I swear to God I will have you arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Do you understand me?" Principal Harrison appeared with the other 3 children in tow. Tyson immediately ran to Taraji, grabbing her other leg. Regina and Tanya clustered behind her, all 4 children using their mother as a human shield against this strange man who was claiming impossible things. "Should I call the police, Ms. Long?" Principal Harrison asked, her phone already in hand. "Not yet, but I want this documented. Photos of him at the fence, written report with exact timeline, official statement that this man is not authorized to be near my children under any circumstances whatsoever, and I want enhanced security protocols. He should never be able to get this close to them again." David's lawyer had apparently told him he had parental rights, had told him to assert his position as their biological father. But looking at four terrified children clinging to their mother, at other parents staring at him with disgust and suspicion, at the security guard's hand drifting toward his radio, David finally understood how this actually looked, like he was a predator, like he was dangerous, like he was someone who threatened children instead of protecting them. "I wasn't trying to scare them," he said weakly. "I just wanted to meet them properly, to talk to Spencer for a few minutes. What you want stopped mattering the second you called me unfit for motherhood and married someone else while I was pregnant." Taraji's voice could have frozen fire. "Leave, right now, before I change my mind about calling the police, before I add this incident to the restraining order my lawyer is filing as we speak." He left because what else could he possibly do? He got in his car and drove away while four pairs of eyes, his children's eyes, watched him go with fear and confusion. Taraji drove her children home in heavy silence. Once inside their house, she sat them all on the living room couch and took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart and shaking hands before addressing what had just happened. "Kids, we need to have a serious talk about what just happened, about that man. I need you all to listen carefully and ask any questions you have." "Is he really our daddy?" Tyson asked, his voice uncertain. Taraji chose her words with extreme care. "Biologically? Yes, he helped make you. But being a father is about so much more than biology. It's about showing up every single day, changing diapers when you're babies, and waking up at night when you're sick and teaching you to tie your shoes and reading bedtime stories and being there when you're scared or sad or happy. That man has never done any of those things, not once in your entire lives." "Why not?" Regina's voice was very small. "Because he made a choice a long time ago, before you were even born, that he didn't want to be part of our family. Adults sometimes make selfish decisions that hurt people, especially children who don't deserve to be hurt. This was his decision, not yours. You didn't do anything wrong. This is entirely about his choices. But now he wants to be our dad?" Spencer's 5-year-old logic was trying desperately to make sense of something that made no sense. Why now? Sometimes people regret their choices when they see the consequences, but regret doesn't erase what they did. It doesn't automatically mean they've earned a place in your life or that they deserve forgiveness. "We don't need him," Spencer announced, with the fierce certainty that only children possess. "You're our superhero, Mommy. You do everything for us. You're both Mommy and Daddy." Taraji pulled them all close, fighting back tears. "I try so hard, babies. I try to be enough for all of you." "You are enough," Tyson said firmly. "We have the best mommy ever." Only Tanya remained quiet throughout the entire conversation, sitting slightly apart from her siblings, her dark eyes, David's eyes, watching her mother with an expression far too mature and observant for a 5-year-old face. That night, all 4 children crawled into Taraji's bed despite being too old for this routine. They needed the comfort and security of their mother's physical presence after the day's trauma. Taraji lay awake long after they'd fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling while rage burned through her like acid. David had absolutely no right to upset their peaceful, stable world. No right to confuse them with impossible claims. No right to scare them or force himself into their consciousness. They'd been perfectly fine without him. Happy, healthy, thriving children who knew without doubt that they were loved completely. Now Spencer was having nightmares about strangers at his school. Regina was asking worried questions about whether the man would come back. Tyson had become clingy, refusing to play outside unless Taraji was watching, and Tanya had retreated even further into her quiet observations, processing trauma in whatever complicated way her sensitive mind worked. Taraji's phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "Restraining order petition filed, hearing scheduled for next week. Document every interaction, every attempt at contact, every incident." She would. She'd document every tear, every nightmare, every moment of fear David had injected into her children's previously peaceful lives. He'd called her a bad mother once. She'd spend the rest of her life proving him catastrophically wrong while ensuring he never got close enough to damage the incredible human she'd raised alone. Chapter 6. The Buying Game. The first package arrived on Tuesday morning. 4 motorized toy cars, top-of-the-line models that probably cost several $100s each, delivered in a massive box. The note attached read, "For Spencer, Tyson, Regina, and Tanya. Love, Dad." Taraji called the delivery company immediately. "Return to sender. I'm refusing this delivery." "Mom, it was prepaid. We can't just—" "I don't care if it was prepaid with gold bars. I'm refusing the package. Take it back where it came from." Wednesday brought an even bigger delivery, a massive professional-grade playground set complete with swings, slide, climbing wall, and monkey bars. A team of installers showed up ready to spend the day building it in her backyard. Taraji stood in her driveway with her arms crossed, blocking their access. "You're not installing anything. Load it back on your truck and return it." "Ma'am, this was prepaid. We have orders to install it specifically at this address." "I don't care what your orders say. I didn't order this. My children don't want it. Load it up and leave my property before I call the police for trespassing." Thursday's delivery was 4 iPads, latest generation, with educational apps preloaded. Friday brought designer clothing in each child's exact size. Saturday morning, a delivery truck arrived carrying 4 custom bikes with training wheels and matching helmets. Taraji rejected every single delivery. She refused to sign for anything. She called delivery companies and threatened legal action if they continued bringing unwanted packages to her home. David's desperation was palpable and pathetic. He genuinely believed expensive gifts could purchase what he'd lost through cruelty and absence. He thought toys could substitute for the 5 years he'd missed. He thought his children were commodities that could be bought like hedge fund clients. Sunday morning, Regina looked out the window while eating breakfast and gasped loudly. "Mommy, come look! There's a big sign with our names on it." Taraji's stomach dropped with dread. She walked to the window and felt rage flood through her entire body. David had rented a billboard visible from their neighborhood, positioned along the route they took to school every single morning. The message was splashed across it in enormous letters impossible to miss. "Spencer, Tyson, Regina, Tanya, your dad loves you." "Why does it say that?" Regina asked, genuinely confused. "Why is he putting our names on a big sign that everyone can see?" Spencer scowled, his face scrunching exactly the way David's did when he was angry. "He's weird and creepy. I don't like him at all." Taraji called her lawyer immediately, barely containing her fury. "Is this legal? Can he just put my children's private names on a public billboard for thousands of strangers to see every day?" "Unfortunately, first names aren't legally protected. It's definitely harassment and terrible judgment, but probably not actionable. Add it to the documentation." She photographed the billboard from every possible angle. Her children saw their names displayed publicly every single day on the way to and from school. They asked questions she didn't want to answer. Their private identities had become public property. David's lawyer called, requesting formal mediation. "My client simply wants to establish a relationship with his biological children. He's willing to negotiate custody arrangements, visitation schedules, financial support payments." "Tell your client he had 5 years to establish relationships," Taraji interrupted coldly. "Tell him he forfeited every right through his own documented choices. Tell him I'll see him in court." The mediation happened anyway, court-ordered, despite Taraji's objections. She sat across from David at a conference table with multiple lawyers between them. "Mr. Maxwell, please state your position for the record," the mediator began. David leaned forward with practiced sincerity. "I simply want to know my children. Taraji kept them from me deliberately and maliciously for 5 years. I've tried reaching out peacefully, but she's blocking every single attempt. I'm asking for joint custody with alternating weekends, shared decision-making for education and healthcare." The mediator turned to Taraji. "Ms. Long, your response?" She opened her folder. I'd like to submit evidence of exactly why Mr. Maxwell had no knowledge of his children's existence. She played the recording of their final fight. David's voice filled the conference room. You're not mother material. You're cold and selfish. Real women sacrifice for family. The mediator's expression shifted from neutral to disapproving. Taraji showed the Facebook posts, the text messages, the complete timeline proving he'd married Lynn within 3 weeks of their breakup. I was 8 weeks pregnant when I called Mr. Maxwell's mother, attempting to inform him. Here are the phone records with date and timestamp. She slid them across. His mother told me explicitly that he'd moved on with Lynn and didn't want drama from his past relationships. That was his family's choice to shut me out. I attempted contact exactly once. David's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. My client didn't know his mother had that conversation. His client married someone else while I was pregnant with his children, Taraji interrupted. His client built an entire life that explicitly excluded me. His client told multiple mutual friends I was too cold and selfish to ever be a good mother. All of this is extensively documented. She pulled out additional documentation. Since the reunion 2 weeks ago, Mr. Maxwell has engaged in behavior that demonstrates he prioritizes his own desires over the children's well-being. He approached them at their school, terrifying them. He sent expensive gifts they don't want. He rented a public billboard displaying their private names. Every action centers his needs rather than their well-being. The mediator reviewed the evidence for several long minutes. When he finally looked up, his expression was grave. Mr. Maxwell, I'm not seeing a viable path forward here. You have no established legal standing. You never established paternity, never paid support, and there's documented evidence you were informed through family channels during Ms. Long's pregnancy and chose not to respond. Additionally, your recent behavior suggests extremely poor judgment regarding their well-being. She's poisoning them against me. David's control finally cracked. She's deliberately keeping them from knowing their father. You're not their father, Taraji said with devastating coldness. You're a sperm donor who's suddenly interested in the product now that it exists. My children have a parent, me. They don't need a man who called their mother unfit, suddenly deciding he wants to play daddy because his ego can't handle the consequences. The mediation ended with no agreement reached. That night, after putting the children to bed, she wrote a post on her professional Facebook page. She didn't name David explicitly. She didn't have to. To the person currently trying to buy their way into my children's lives through expensive gifts and public displays, love isn't purchased with toys or money. It's earned through presence, sacrifice, consistency, and putting their needs before your ego. 5 years of complete absence isn't erased by a few weeks of showboating. My children deserve better than someone who wants them now that they're convenient props for his redemption narrative. The post went viral within hours. Her professional community rallied around her with overwhelming support. Comments poured in from other single mothers, from people who'd been abandoned by parents, from anyone who understood that real love required actual work and sacrifice. And somewhere across town, David Maxwell saw his own pathetic behavior reflected back through the eyes of thousands of strangers who saw him for exactly what he was. A coward desperately trying to buy redemption he hadn't earned and didn't deserve. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. The call came from an unknown number 3 days after Taraji's Facebook post went viral. She almost didn't answer, but professional instinct made her pick up. Ms. Long, this is Jennifer Torres from Channel 7 News. We're running an investigative story on David Maxwell and the allegations surrounding his secret children. Would you be willing to provide comment or participate in an interview? Taraji's first instinct was immediate refusal. Protect her privacy. Keep her children out of the media spotlight. Handle this quietly through legal channels. But then she thought about the billboard with her children's names. About Spencer's nightmares, about Regina's worried questions, about the fact that David had already made this public by displaying their names for thousands of people to see daily. Maybe it was time the public knew the complete truth instead of whatever narrative David was spinning. "What specific allegations are you investigating?" she asked carefully. "That you deliberately kept his children from him, that you're using them as weapons in some kind of revenge scheme. His publicist is actively painting you as vindictive and unstable. We want to hear your side before we run anything." Rage flared white-hot through Taraji's entire body. "Send me your questions in writing. I'll respond with comprehensive documented evidence. Make sure your fact-checkers are ready to work overtime." She didn't just send written statements. She sent the complete recording of their final fight. She sent every text screenshot showing him calling her unfit for motherhood. She sent the detailed timeline proving he'd married Lynn within 3 weeks of their breakup. She sent phone records showing her single attempt to contact his family during pregnancy. She sent copies of the restraining order request with photographic evidence of him approaching the children at school. She sent documentation of every rejected gift and every intrusive gesture. The news story that ran 4 days later absolutely destroyed David's remaining reputation. Channel 7 didn't hold back anything. They played extended excerpts from the recording, David's voice crystal clear as he called Taraji cold and selfish and unfit for motherhood. They showed screenshots of his Facebook posts bragging about finding a real woman who understood family values. They interviewed Taraji on camera, her composure and documentation making her completely credible and sympathetic. "He made his choice 6 years ago," Taraji said directly into the camera with devastating calm. "He chose to call me unfit for motherhood. He chose to marry someone else within weeks. He chose to build a life that deliberately excluded me. Now he's upset that I built a life that excludes him, but I didn't exclude him. He was never part of this to begin with. He abandoned us before my children even existed. My children have thrived without him. They don't need a father who only wants them because his ego can't handle the consequences of his own documented choices." The interviewer asked, "What do you say to people who claim every child deserves a relationship with their biological father?" "I say that children deserve relationships with adults who prioritize their well-being over their own egos. They deserve consistency, not someone who shows up 5 years late and demands credit. They deserve protection from people who terrorize them at school and plaster their private names on public billboards. Biology doesn't automatically make someone a good parent. Love, sacrifice and presence make good parents. David Maxwell has demonstrated none of those qualities." The fallout was immediate, brutal and comprehensive. David's hedge fund clients started pulling their investments within 24 hours. Nobody wanted the deadbeat dad with secret kids managing their financial futures. Didn't matter that he'd never been legally established as the father or that paternity had never been confirmed through courts. Public opinion had already convicted him, and public opinion controlled where wealthy people invested their money. His business partner called an emergency meeting. "David, you're toxic right now. Every client who knows your name is asking questions. The firm's reputation is suffering by association. We need to create significant distance between you and our brand immediately." "They're my clients," David protested desperately. "I built those relationships personally over years." "You also built a reputation as someone who abandons his pregnant girlfriend and pretends his kids don't exist for 5 years. That's not someone people trust with their retirement funds and investment portfolios. I'm sorry, but you need to go." He was forced out of his own firm within a week, forced to sell his partnership shares at a significant loss, forced to watch his name get stripped from the company letterhead like he'd never existed, like he'd never built anything worth remembering. Lynn's divorce became a media sensation. She gave tearful interviews about their years of painful fertility struggles, about how David had made her feel broken and inadequate while he had 4 healthy children he'd never bothered to mention. "He let me go through years of treatments," she told a reporter, mascara streaming down her face. "Let me blame myself for our inability to conceive. Let me think I was the problem, that my body was defective. Meanwhile, he had 4 beautiful, healthy children he'd never even tried to meet. What kind of person does that to someone they claim to love?" The interviewer asked. "Did he ever explain why he never mentioned them?" "He said he didn't know they existed. But the timeline doesn't make sense. His ex-girlfriend has phone records showing she tried to contact his family when she was pregnant. He chose not to respond. He chose to marry me instead. He chose to let me suffer while he played happy newlyweds. That's not ignorance, that's deliberate cruelty. David's parents finally requested a formal meeting with the children after weeks of Taraji ignoring their calls. She agreed to one supervised visit at her mother's house, completely neutral territory with multiple witnesses. His mother walked through the door and stopped completely frozen, staring at the quadruplets playing in the living room. Spencer was building an elaborate castle with blocks. Tyson was reading a picture book aloud to Regina, who listened with rapt attention. Tanya sat quietly coloring, her tongue poking out in concentration with the exact same expression David had made as a child. "Oh my God," his mother whispered, her hand covering her mouth. "They're absolutely beautiful. They're perfect." "They are," Taraji agreed coldly. "And they've been beautiful and perfect every single day for 5 years, while you and your son pretended they didn't exist." "I didn't know," his mother said, her voice breaking with emotion. "When you called all those years ago, you didn't explicitly tell me you were pregnant. I honestly thought you were just trying to get David back after the breakup." "I was 2 months pregnant and terrified," Taraji interrupted. "I reached out specifically because I needed help and thought his family should know. You told me he'd moved on and didn't want drama. You protected David's new marriage and his choices. Now you have to live with what that protection cost." David's father approached Spencer cautiously, kneeling down to the child's level. "Hello there, young man. That's quite an impressive castle you're building. What are you making?" Spencer looked up with David's exact hazel eyes. "A castle with a really big moat so bad guys can't ever get inside and hurt people." "That's very smart thinking." He blinked back tears rapidly. "You look just like your daddy did when he was your age." "I don't have a daddy," Spencer said matter-of-factly, returning to his blocks. "Just mommy and grandma and grandpa." He clearly meant Taraji's parents. The visit lasted exactly 1 hour. David's parents were gentle and careful, clearly overwhelmed by meeting their grandchildren for the first time. When they left, his mother hugged Taraji tightly. "These children are absolutely remarkable. That's entirely your doing. We failed you catastrophically. We failed them. I don't know how to fix 5 years of mistakes." "You can't fix it," Taraji said simply. "Those years are gone forever. But you can potentially be their grandparents going forward if you prove yourselves trustworthy, if you prioritize their well-being over David's feelings, if you understand they don't owe him anything regardless of biology." David started leaving letters at Taraji's office, sealed envelopes addressed to her that her assistant collected in a growing pile. Taraji refused to open a single one. His desperation and regret could sit in those unopened envelopes forever. She owed him nothing, not even the courtesy of reading his pathetic attempts at explanation or apology. He somehow found out about Regina's dance recital. His mother must have told him, despite Taraji's explicit instructions. He showed up and sat in the very back row, silent and unobtrusive, just watching his daughter perform her routine in a pink tutu. When Regina took her bow, her eyes scanned the audience and landed directly on David sitting alone in the back. She didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't show any recognition, just looked at him like he was a stranger, which he was, before turning back to her dance teacher for feedback and praise. After the recital, Regina asked Taraji while they were driving home, "Mommy, why was that man from the school crying when I was dancing? I saw him wiping his eyes." "Sometimes people cry when they suddenly realize what they've lost, baby." Regina thought about this seriously. "But he didn't really lose me, did he? He never had me to lose in the first place." Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds came devastating truth that adults spent years avoiding. Chapter 8. Birthday Breaking Point. The invitations for the quadruplet's 6th birthday party went out 3 months in advance. Taraji had learned through hard experience that planning anything involving 4 children required military-level precision. She'd rented a beautiful, converted barn venue on the outskirts of town, complete with space for multiple bounce houses, game stations, and entertainment. She'd hired a professional magician, a face painter, and a balloon artist. She'd ordered 4 separate cakes because her children had different favorite flavors: chocolate for Spencer, vanilla for Tyson, strawberry for Regina, red velvet for Tanya. The guest list included their entire preschool class plus family friends. She'd told exactly 3 people the location: her parents and Jessica. Somehow, David found out. The party was in full swing when he arrived. Children shrieking in the bounce house, parents at snack tables, the magician setting up, everything perfect. Then she heard the commotion at the entrance. "Sir, this is a private party. Your name isn't on the list. I need you to leave immediately." "I'm their father. Those are my children celebrating their birthday. I have a right to be here." Taraji's blood turned to ice. She handed Tyson to her mother and strode toward the entrance, fury radiating from every step. David stood arguing with the security guard she'd hired specifically to prevent this. He was holding 4 wrapped presents with elaborate bows, looking disheveled and desperate. "What the hell are you doing here?" Taraji demanded, her voice shaking with rage. "It's their birthday, Taraji. I just want to give them their presents. I just want to tell them happy birthday, and you weren't invited. You're not welcome here. Leave my children's birthday party immediately." "Taraji, please." His voice cracked with desperation. "I'm begging you. Just 5 minutes. Just let me give them these gifts." "Let you what? Traumatize them again on what's supposed to be the happiest day of their year? Confuse them in front of all their friends? Make this entire celebration about your needs instead of their joy? Absolutely not. Get out." The party had gone silent. The bounce house was still. Other parents were watching with open shock. They'd all seen the news coverage. Someone was recording. The children's laughter had died, replaced by confused whispers. "I just want to say happy birthday to my kids!" David's shout echoed through the entire barn. The 4 birthday children appeared from different directions. Tyson ran straight to Taraji, grabbing her hand, his superhero cape crooked. His face showed pure fear. Spencer positioned himself protectively in front of his mother, small fists clenched. Regina emerged from the face-painting station with half her face painted like a butterfly, tears streaming down the unpainted side. Tanya stood frozen near the cake table, hands pressed over her ears, eyes wide with terror, her whole body trembling violently. Security moved to physically escort David out. He resisted, trying to see his children. "You don't get to do this." Taraji had to physically stand between David and her children. "You don't get to traumatize my children on their birthday because you finally feel guilty. Look at them, David. Regina is crying. Tanya is terrified. Tyson won't let go of my hand. Spencer thinks you're a villain. This is what you've accomplished. This is the damage you cause every single time you force yourself into our world." David's desperate eyes found Tanya, the quiet one, the most sensitive one, the child who'd almost died at birth. She was sobbing now, still covering her ears, her whole body shaking so hard she looked like she might collapse. Something finally broke through his desperation. The 4 wrapped presents slipped from his hands, hitting the ground with dull thuds. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to—" He left without finishing, just turned and walked out while 4 pairs of eyes watched him go with fear and confusion. The party never recovered. Regina couldn't stop crying. Tanya wouldn't come out from behind Taraji's mother. Spencer kept asking if the bad man would come back. Tyson forgot about being a superhero and just wanted to go home. They cut the birthday cakes early, everyone singing off-key while the birthday children stood there looking shell-shocked. The magician performed for a subdued audience. Parents collected their kids early with sympathetic looks. Taraji drove her 4 traumatized babies home in silence, watching them in the rearview mirror. They looked shell-shocked. Their special day had been ruined by a man who claimed to love them while causing them nothing but pain. That night, all 4 children climbed into Taraji's bed, something they hadn't done in over a year, but tonight they needed the security of their mother's presence. They needed to feel safe after being made to feel vulnerable. "Is the man going to keep coming back?" Regina whispered in the dark. "Not if I can help it, baby. Not ever again." "I don't like him at all," Spencer announced firmly. "He ruined Tanya's birthday and made Regina cry. That's mean." Tanya hadn't spoken since the incident, Not a single word. She lay curled against Taraji's side with her thumb in her mouth, a habit she'd broken over a year ago, but had suddenly returned. Silent tears leaked from her closed eyes. Tyson climbed onto Taraji's lap. "Are we going to be okay, Mommy?" "We're going to be better than okay," Taraji promised fiercely. "We're us, the 5 of us together. That's all we need." They eventually fell asleep in a tangled pile. Taraji stayed awake long after, staring at the ceiling and crying silently, her heart breaking for her children's stolen innocence. She texted David at 3 in the morning. "You've caused enough damage. My children are genuinely terrified of you. Regina had nightmares all night. Tanya hasn't spoken a single word since you showed up. Spencer thinks you're an actual villain. Tyson won't let me out of his sight. This is what your presence brings to their lives: pain, fear, confusion, and trauma. Stay away from us, forever and completely. If you truly love them like you claim, you'll leave them alone and let them heal from the damage you've caused." His response came immediately. "I understand. I'm sorry. I'll go. I won't bother you or them again. I promise." For the first time since the reunion, Taraji actually believed him. The damage was too visible, too undeniable, too impossible to ignore. Even David could finally see what his selfish need for redemption was doing to innocent children who'd done nothing to deserve this. She just desperately hoped it wasn't too late to repair what he'd so carelessly broken. Chapter 9. The Silent Work. 6 weeks passed in blessed silence. David didn't call, didn't text, didn't send gifts, didn't show up anywhere unexpected. The billboard with the children's names finally came down. The stream of delivery trucks stopped completely. It was like he'd vanished from their lives as completely as he'd been absent before. Taraji waited for relief to settle in. Instead, she felt strange unease. The children asked fewer questions with each passing day. Life gradually returned to normal rhythms. Spencer's nightmares faded. Regina stopped crying at bedtime. Tyson became confident again. Even Tanya started speaking more, though she remained the quietest of the 4. Then strange, unexplainable things started happening. Her mortgage company called on a Tuesday afternoon. "Ms. Long, I'm calling to confirm the recent transaction on your account. Your home loan has been paid in full. The remaining balance is 0. Taraji nearly dropped her phone. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "Someone made a lump sum payment covering your entire remaining mortgage, approximately $180,000. We received cleared funds yesterday. Your home is now owned free and clear." "That's absolutely not possible. I didn't authorize any payment like that." "The payment came from a properly registered LLC. Everything was legal. Your mortgage is completely satisfied." She called her lawyer immediately. "Can you trace an anonymous LLC payment? Someone just paid off my entire mortgage." "I'll investigate. Give me the details." 3 days later, a trust administrator contacted her. "Ms. Long, I'm calling regarding 4 educational trusts established in the names of Spencer Long, Tyson Long, Regina Long, and Tanya Long. You're listed as trustee." "I didn't set up any trusts." "They were established by an anonymous donor through proper legal channels. Each trust contains sufficient funds for complete undergraduate education, graduate school if desired, study abroad programs, and all educational expenses. The trusts are irrevocable. The donor cannot reclaim the funds or use them as leverage." "How much money are we talking about?" "Each trust holds $200,000, $800,000 total, for her children's futures." Anonymous, but not really. She knew exactly who would do this. Her lawyer called that afternoon. "The LLC that paid your mortgage, registered through a law firm specializing in confidential transactions. Their client is David Maxwell. He's also established 4 life insurance policies with the children as beneficiaries. If he dies, each child receives $500,000. Why would he do this? This is penance. This is a man who's finally understood that love means sacrifice, not presence. Her mother appeared that evening looking troubled. "Baby, I need to tell you something. I've been volunteering at Children's Hospital for the past year. There's a man who started about 2 months ago. He comes every Saturday, reads to the sick children for hours. Never misses a week. Last week, one of the nurses mentioned his name. She paused. It's David. Taraji felt something twist in her chest. What? He doesn't know I volunteer there, but I asked around. He's been coming since the birthday party. The nurses say he's gentle with dying kids, patient with recovering children, rocks crying babies in the NICU. They say he cries sometimes. He's not doing it for recognition. He specifically requested no publicity. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know who he's becoming, not the man who hurt you, the man who's trying to learn what it means to care about children's well-being without expecting anything in return. Her lawyer called again. There's more. David donated $100,000 to a scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing higher education. The fund is in your name, and he's filed legal documents voluntarily terminating all parental rights. Complete termination, zero custody, zero visitation. He's given up every claim, but the support payments continue. They go into trusts you control, automatic until each child turns 25. That weekend, Lynn Williams showed up at Taraji's studio. Lynn looked different, thinner, harder, bitter in ways that aged her. I'm not here to cause problems, Lynn said. I just thought you should know something about David. I don't need to know anything about him. He's broke. The divorce took half his assets. He lives in a studio apartment now, drives a 10-year-old car, works making a fraction of what he used to earn. Her smile was sharp. And he sends every extra penny to those trusts for your kids. He set up the mortgage payoff before the divorce finalized. He established those education funds with the last of his savings. He's giving everything to children he's not allowed to see. Why are you telling me this? Because I spent 3 years watching him be obsessed with the fantasy of fatherhood. Now I'm watching him be obsessed with you and those kids in a completely different way. He's not trying to buy his way back in. He's trying to do what he should have done 6 years ago, support the mother of his children so they can thrive, even if it destroys him, even if he never sees them again. Lynn left without waiting for a response. Taraji sat alone in her office, processing everything: the mortgage payoff, the education trusts, the life insurance policies, the voluntary termination of rights, the hospital volunteering, the scholarship fund. David wasn't trying to force his way back into their lives anymore. He was trying to earn something he would probably never have: redemption for choices that couldn't be unmade, damage that couldn't be repaired, time that couldn't be recovered. Chapter 10. The Terms of Mercy. 8 months after the reunion, David's lawyer sent a request: 1 meeting, public location, no expectations, documents requiring signature. Taraji agreed to meet at a busy cafe during lunch, neutral ground, witnesses everywhere. David arrived on time. He looked fundamentally different. The expensive suits gone, replaced by worn jeans and a plain shirt. He'd lost weight, his face drawn, tired, new lines carved by stress. He looked like someone broken down and slowly rebuilding. He sat and slid a folder across the table. What are these? Legal documents giving you sole rights to use my surname for the children if they want it. Complete medical history for my family going back 3 generations. Contact information for my parents who want to be grandparents on your terms, and my will. Everything goes to Spencer, Tyson, Regina, and Tanya. Why? Because I need you to hear something. David's voice was steady despite emotion. You were right about everything. I was a coward who wanted a fantasy instead of a partner. You needed no one, and that terrified me, so I tore you down and walked away. I already know this. You deserve to hear me say it. Those children exist because you're stronger than I ever was. You carried them alone, delivered them alone, raised them through everything without me, and instead of being grateful, I demanded credit, made everything about my feelings instead of their well-being. And now? Now I'm trying to do what I should have done from the beginning. Support their mother, ensure their futures, make sure they never suffer because I'm their biological father. I'm not asking to be in their lives. I'm asking to do right by them from a distance. You think money fixes this? No. I think money is the bare minimum I should have provided all along. I think it's my responsibility, even if they never know my name." Taraji studied him. He wasn't performing, wasn't trying to manipulate. He looked genuinely broken, genuinely accepting he'd destroyed something irreparable. The hospital volunteering. "Why spend your Saturdays with dying children?" David's eyes filled with tears. "Because I needed to learn what caring about children's well-being means without expecting anything in return. Those kids can't give me anything. Many are dying, but they need someone to read to them, to make them feel less alone. That's what being present for children means, showing up when it's hard and thankless. I should have learned that 6 years ago. The scholarship fund, the mortgage, the trusts, the termination of rights while continuing support. What's the end game? There isn't one. I'm not earning my way back. I'm trying to become someone who deserved to be their father, even though I never will be." "I'm not doing this for you," she said finally. "When they turn 18, if they want to know you, I won't interfere. If they want to meet their biological father, that's their choice as adults. But until then, you prove yourself through actions. A decade of supporting them without seeing them, without demanding anything, maybe that earns you one conversation when they're adults." "Maybe." David's eyes filled with tears that spilled over. "That's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is. But I'm doing this so they can make their own choices someday. They deserve to know their biological father at least spent their childhood supporting them, even when he couldn't be present." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank them if they ever give you the chance. And prove you mean this by staying away until they're ready." Taraji stood, gathering the papers. No hug, no forgiveness, just terms, just boundaries, just a potential future in her children's hands, not his. That evening, she sat her children down. "Remember the man who came to your birthday party?" 4 faces showed wariness. "He's your biological father, that's a fact. But being someone's biological father doesn't make you their dad. A real dad shows up every day. This man didn't. But he's trying now to make sure you have good futures." "Will he come back?" Regina asked nervously. "Not until you're grown up and can decide for yourselves." "I don't want to know him," Spencer announced. "He scared Tanya." Tanya spoke quietly. He looked sad, really sad. Sometimes people feel sad when they realize what they destroyed, but sadness doesn't fix what they broke. They seemed satisfied, already moving to dinner questions. Taraji watched them scatter and felt something settle. She'd done it, raised 4 incredible humans alone, built a business, secured their futures, protected them. David had learned the hardest lesson. Some mistakes can never be corrected, some damage never repaired, and some people spend their lives paying for choices they can't take back. In 10 years, maybe her children would want to meet him, or maybe they'd decide biology didn't matter as much as presence. Either way, it would be their choice, their power. Taraji had given them that power by refusing to let David's guilt force a relationship they didn't want. She'd protected them, raised them, loved them fiercely. She'd proven David wrong about everything. And watching her 4 perfect children thrive without needing him, that was the sweetest revenge. No reunion, no forgiveness, no second chances, just consequences that would follow David Maxwell forever, while Taraji Long continued building the empire he'd told her she couldn't have. She'd won, completely. And her children would grow up knowing their mother had been enough, more than enough, all by herself.